Hello, everyone. Welcome to Off Ice, episode number 4. I'm Ted Barton, your host, along with Mark Hanretty, coming to us from Nottingham in the UK. Mark, welcome to show number 4.
Yeah, excited. We're just bashing out the content here. Junior Grand Prix after Junior Grand Prix, podcast after podcast. We just keep going, Dad.
Well, we've already seen 4 Junior Grand Prix. Up next, of course, will be Budapest. It's been a lot of fun along the way. Looking right here, Mark. Montreal 2024 logo. Don't forget about that in March 18th to 24th in Montreal, the Bell Center. Incredible facility. That's going to be quite the World Championship. But this show is all about questions and answers from the viewers and fans around the world. And we thank you for sending in these questions and answers. It's always a lot of fun. We haven't read through them, so some of this might be a bit of a surprise. Mark,
Warning.
Let's get going. I'm going to bring the first question to you. This is from Mintz from New York. Mark, what is your favorite and least favorite parts of commentating?
Okay, that one I think is fairly easy. My favorite part of commentating, when I started to commentate, so I finished competing in 2010, and then there's like a dark period where I didn't really, I kind of veered away from skating, competitive skating a bit, and then I fell back in love with it. And when I was asked to commentate, I'd already become a father. I was a father by then. And I thought, I am able to watch the best skating in the world without interruption. Because for me to do that at home would be impossible because I have young children. So for me to get to watch the best skating in the world and to be able to study the lives of the athletes was wondrous. My least favorite part of commentating is the sort of anxiety or worry that I will make a mistake or not represent the skaters well enough or accurately. And I remember last year, it still resides in my being, Ted. As you know, I'm researching all the athletes and the skaters and the coaches, trying to give a backstory to their performance. And last year, I made a mistake about one of the skaters' coaches, and I'd done some fact checking online, and my facts were wrong. And so, my least favorite part about commentating is the worry about making a factually incorrect statement. And you can see the impact that it has on me a year later, and I will endeavour to avoid that ever again.
Yeah, it's so difficult and disappointing when we get things wrong, and sometimes the bios may not even be accurate, and so we're following that as well. And we just do the best we can with the information we have and the research we do. And there's so many skaters over those 7 weeks. But I remember one comment you made when you came on to the broadcast, and I so admired that. You told me the story about when you were a skater and listening to the commentary about your skating, and it was one of the reasons why you wanted to do this on the Junior Grand Prix. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, exactly. I like, every skater that is managing to achieve the opportunity to represent their nation at a big international. I competed my first IFC championship, was the European Championships, and I spent all of my life, working towards that, desperately eager to do that. And the commentator gave some negative, incorrect commentary. And I remember we'd finished our performance and it went, okay, as well as we were happy. Done European Championships, yay! And then I was getting messages from home saying, oh, the commentator said this and the commentator said that. And I thought, oh, gosh. And it really quashed my, experience of working towards something for so long. And I just thought, at the time, that was obviously deeply upsetting. But now, I thank that commentator profusely in hindsight, because that has made me so desperately keen to do all the prep to represent the skaters in the sport, because we know, I know, having done that, the volume of work from the skater, the coach, the family, the village, the army behind them, and they all need as much representation and backing and cheer. We can be their cheerleader, and I am happy to try and be the cheerleader for them rather than the guy that said not nice stuff about me.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Yeah, so much like that, because that's what the Junior Grand Prix is all about, is trying to help the skaters as well. We have to be honest, a poor skate for the skater is a poor skate, but it doesn't mean they're a poor skater. And so, you impressed me so much when you had made that comment, and that's why I thought you'd be great on this, and you are on the Junior Grand Prix, so thank you for that. Okay, question number 2. Throw it to me.
So sending question 2 to you, Ted, from Kylie in Maryland. She asks, what do you like most about covering the Junior Grand Prix?
The juniors. They come there with big eyes like this, and they're just thrilled to be there. And you have the big smiles on their face. You can see they're a little bit nervous, and they look around, and you have these skaters coming from all over the world, whether it's from Venezuela or from Chile or from United Arab Emirates or the United States or wherever it is, they're just thrilled to be there. And you love that. And whether it is a successful double Salchow or whether it's a quad, the pure joy, and I would say the courage, because some of those skaters come not having a facility, not having the coaching, perhaps not having the type of training that other countries have, but they go onto the ice and they go out there and they know they're outmatched totally by some of the other skaters, but they're trying just as hard. So I love that pure love of skating and pure courage to compete on the juniors. And it's not affected by, okay, we cover in streaming, but it's not affected by big TV and a big audience and by the federation's pressures. It's really more raw and more natural. That's what I love about it. Okay. Next question from Enrico from Berlin, Germany, for you, Mark. It's Mark and Ted. What are your biggest challenges as commentators?
Well, I think probably before the Junior Grand Prix series with you, Ted, last year, I would have guessed that my biggest challenge would have been to commentate upon a weaker skater or a poor performance. But having worked with you and also doing the research to learn about the stories of the skaters, that hasn't been a problem at all. And in some ways now, I almost enjoy the role of commentator more to be able to represent the weaker skater or the poor skater, because we have so much background info as to the challenges that they're facing to get even out there. So that would have been my biggest challenge before. But then on the flip side of that, the double-edged sword of being the biggest challenge of being a commentator is how much prep is enough prep, because you could just endlessly keep scouring and trying to find more stats about every skater, and there's only so much time in the day. Yeah,
actually, that was one of the things I was going to say. I think one of the biggest challenges for me was the long days, because sometimes we're on air for 11 hours. So when you're covering skating in different disciplines and different people from around the world for those 11 hours, and how much, you're right, how much content research can we provide to not become cumbersome, right? We're covering this, and that's what we want to do. So it's good to have some background, but you don't want to have that dominating just going on and on and on, right? So, but the long hours sometimes are challenging, but in some ways they're thrilling as well, and you feel great at the end of the day because you get to go home and have a good sleep. Okay, next up.
So from Yorkshire, not far from where I am now in the UK, it's a question from Ruth. What do you think that you've learned from each other whilst you've been commentating together, and how do you think your commentary styles differ?
Good question, Ruth. Thank you for that. I think that what I've learned most from you is, that homework and research, and I already sort of knew it was there, but now the way you research it and the context that you have, and using whether it's Instagram or social media or whatever, and I think that's great. So I've learned a good deal with that. Obviously, watching you analyze dance or listening to you analyze dance as well, that also helps. And and I think our styles, here's our style differences. You have a really nice accent and I don't. Okay.
No, nonsense. We always want what we haven't got. I think everybody else over here would want your accent. And in regards to me on the flip side of it, in terms of what I've learned from you, what I love from working alongside you, Ted, is in the same ways we talk about the rawness of the juniors, it's the quite raw, not unfiltered, raw love for skating that we share.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, question number 5 from Montserrat from Gabon in Central Africa, pardon me. Who are the juniors? And thank you for that, by the way. That's outstanding coming from Africa here. Who are the juniors who have impressed you most since you began commentating on the Junior Grand Prix?
So unlike you, Ted, you've done endless series of the Junior Grand Prix coverage and the commentary, but for me, I have just the 1 year of reference up to now. And I remember standing out from last year in particular, the Czech ice dance team that went on to win the Junior World Championships, Mrazkova and Mrazek, and being able to see them train live and thinking they are probably the fastest ice dancers I've ever seen, junior and senior. And then I'll never forget seeing Mal Shimada's combination spin, where she did the eye spin, and she just seemed to accelerate and accelerate and accelerate endlessly, and thinking, gosh, she's 13 years old and she's doing something that I don't think I've ever seen anybody do it as well. Wow, that will reside in my brain for a long, long time.
Yeah, that's good. I believe the same thing with the Czech dance team. Of course, we watched them last season win in any, I think it was the final competition. Just the speed is just mind-blowing. It's really hard. And then you saw some mistakes during the year because they're pushing to the edge of disaster, but when they're not over that edge, it's absolute brilliance. But they always run that risk, being so aggressive. And of course, they won the title. So no, they were incredible. But I think what has impressed me the most is to watch not a person, but nations. Korea is a really good example. When we first started in the Junior Grand Prix back in 2014, of course, the Russians were on the scene at the time, and they were pretty good, and there's no question. There was a little bit more of an even mix in that, but the Japanese skaters were always strong skaters. Russian skaters were good technical skaters, and they had nice programs. But the Korean skaters were in the development mode. But now, when you watch Korean skaters, oh my gosh, have they closed the gap? But you have to say that Japan and Korea are the two top nations of the Junior Grand Prix, without doubt, and the Americans are close behind, of course. So watching these federations, and particularly in the junior categories, start to develop their juniors at a much higher basic skating skill level, and that's really exciting. And we've seen brilliant performances from really a number of nations on the Junior Grand Prix. So I don't want to pick just one of them, but it's been a lot of fun watching the countries continue to develop as well. And we've seen more skaters represented with countries in South America and as well. So that's kind of fun to see. Okay, up next, Sarah from Seoul, Korea.
Yeah, and talking about Korean skaters, Sarah asks, what songs would you like to see used by a skater or team on the Junior Grand Prix? Ooh.
Okay, I have mine. I would like... Let me hold on. Where are we here? Yes, I would like to see. I love this. Probably nobody's going to do it. It's probably too mature for them. I'm not sure, but the Pearl Fishers duet by Georges Bizet just is so bone-chilling and beautiful melody, powerful voices, and of course, opera is not used as much as it was perhaps in the 70s in exhibitions, not in competition, of course. So I wouldn't mind seeing somebody venture into, not for a whole program for sure, but into some pieces like that. So the duet from the Pearl Fishers is one of my favorite. Love to see that. Maybe not in juniors, but love to see it in seniors.
I'm just writing it down to listen to later. Okay, so for me, oh gosh, there's just so much wonderful music. For me, there's nothing more wonderful than the skater taking the piece, perfectly interpreting with the correct emotion, and be musically on point with every beat. So whoever can do that, I'm going to love them.
Yeah,
love.
Absolutely. Okay, Kelly from Missouri in the United States. What do you do in your off season, Mark? Work.
Work like a madman. I come from a family of workaholics, and I think that tends to be something that I suffer from as well. I coach, I choreograph, and I do Dancing on Ice, the TV show where we skate with celebrity partners over here as well. And I'm trying as much as possible to be a good father and husband. So trying to be the best father and husband I can possibly be, whilst also providing life for them by working my backside off.
Okay, but what is a hobby? Do you have any hobbies other than work?
No. Sadly, that's a bit sad, isn't it? I mean, I had these amazing jobs like working with you, traveling the world, seeing the best skaters. So at least the good thing is that I really like my job, because having no hobbies and not liking your job, that would be sad.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm going to have to teach you how to fish.
Yes.
Although that could be, pathetic. But anyways, my off season, I do a lot of production work. So I host obviously in Skate Canada as well, and we do a lot of national production teams, and we've got a lot of good commentators here in Canada as well. So that's a busy part. I also work on some very special production projects for Skate Canada, which is really interesting. I don't want to mention them here in time. You'll see that. So that's kind of fun. I love production. I really do. But what I do a lot of fishing. I ski, play tennis, things like that. But I particularly love fishing. It's my complete break away from, it's my safe place, even though there might be grizzly bears where I am. So, but it's just such a peaceful place to be. So I like to do that. Okay, what's up next?
So next question, heading into some more technical questions. David from the West Midlands, which again, also near me, he asks, one of his criticisms of the current scoring system is the way in which higher program component scores seem to be attached to higher scoring jumps, triple axels and quad jumps. After all, there are two sets of marks given for a reason, and that one shouldn't simply mirror the other, but often seems to. I seem to remember the experiment of splitting the two panels at an event last season. What is your opinion on this idea?
Well, it's a really good question, and there's not a perfect answer, and there will be perhaps maybe small variety of different answers. But one of the things to consider here is that when there are technical mistakes in a program, you're going to that affects the PC scores for sure. When the program is clean, that also affects the PC scores. Now, maybe the person is a wonderful technical skater and less in PCs, but the fact is there are no mistakes to affect the program components. Maybe there should be, in some cases, a wider spread. Maybe some of the judges, because you don't see all the individual scores, have a wider spread, right? So there might be more than we see. And it's always a bit of a sliding scale. I think the judges personally now are doing a much better job at that. I know they are encouraged to do that. It's a little scary, I think, for them to do it. So you'd have to really talk to the judges about that. I think it's their input about the challenges with all that. And right at the end of this question, because this is where I'd like to get to, what is your, the idea is after there are two sets of marks giving, I seem to remember the experiment of splitting the two panels at an event last season. What was your opinion on this idea? And that, I think, is where I want to say the full solution, but I want to say I'd love to see it go. Always thought from the beginning of working on the judging system that that's what it should be. I think it's a very, very difficult job to judge. I admire the judges for what they do. I really do. I don't think anybody tries to do anything necessarily wrong. I think it's complicated. It's very, very hard work. And when you have a technical panel, that's good. At least we've alleviated that portion of it. And then you've got the judging panel. I'd love to see a GOE panel, a technical panel, and a program components panel. And then I think that you would see, you may lose the overall. That may be true, but at least you'll have specific concentration in each one of those areas. So I think it's a really good question. I think in time, the ISU will continue to experiment with this, and and that's the great thing about the judging system. It's a sliding scale and they can make this work. So I think it's just going to take a bit of time. What are your thoughts, Mark?
Well, I think, like so many skaters and coaches, there has been, and I think there's always been, arguably more so in the past, a divide between those on one side and the judges on the other side. And there's so often I hear of this idea that, that judge doesn't like me, or that judge judges harshly, or whatnot. But interestingly for me, I was mentioning this today when I was at work at the skate camp, just explaining that for us as commentators, when I've been at the events with you, we're neither one camp or the other. We're just trying to support skating. And so I've been able to chat maybe a little bit more with the judges than I ever had before. And on the whole, I think everybody just wants the best for the sport. And I think there's a lot of pressure now on the judges as well to do the right job and to be in line with everybody else. And I, for one, wouldn't want the responsibility or the pressure to dish out the results that they have to. And I think more and more are becoming increasingly appreciative of the time commitment, the energy commitment, and this sort of emotional commitment they have to give to doing the best job they can on the panel voluntarily. Yeah, also the expertise. And, I've talked to a lot of coaches. I said, well, you coached all your life. Would you ever want to judge? And they said, hell no. No, there's no way I want to judge. They have a great respect for it too. They realize how difficult it is. From a coaching perspective, you might be upset because you thought your skater should get this or should get that. But in the end of the day, they appreciate how difficult that job is. Every coach I talk to says, no, I'd rather coach than judge, this for sure. Yeah. I'm going to jump to question number 10, Mark, from Sophie from Vienna, Austria. Do you think raising the senior age limit to 17 is enough to prolong skaters' careers, or are the early retirements mostly caused by the quad revolution, especially for women? What are your thoughts? Okay, right. So I'm going to caveat this with the fact that I don't have it to hand, but when I was searching before the start of the Junior Grand Prix through the ISU communications and looking for new bits and bobs and every new possible rule, I did stumble upon the ISU communication which justified or explained the rationale behind the age increase. And it was obviously well researched, well documented, well regarded as to the impact biomechanically on the bodies of these multi-rotational jumps. And the communication in the study was to support the humans and the bodies of these young people. And, you know, I've heard so many people lament the fact that perhaps the sport is a little stagnant if we're not tapping into some of the juniors, given the fact that we've had the likes of Lipinski at 15 and so many other young Russians coming through who have been the top of the senior games at an earlier stage. But reading that communication and understanding that everybody's greatest interest should be about the life and body of the human, then I absolutely think that, you know, needs to be something that needs to be looked at, and well done to that. I should have the bravery to go through with it. And of course, as with the new judging system, where there is change, there is great protest with everything. Nobody, you know, change is messy at the beginning and glorious at the end. And I'm sure that in time we will continue to research and evolve the impact of this, and perhaps it may change again. But the humans and the bodies are at the forefront of the decision making, and for that, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, it was interesting when that first came out. I thought my initial response, without thinking, of course, was just, "Oh no, I think it should." Then I talked to a lot of people. Particularly, I had a great conversation with Tracy Wilson, coach of Jason Brown and a number of other athletes as well, obviously. And she was a real proponent for this, and because they work with the kids all the time. And he thought, you know what? First of all, this will prolong a skater's career, so that's good. Number two is that, you know, junior. Doesn't matter what sport it is, junior hockey is not the same as senior hockey as the bodies change, and psychologically as well. So I think that if the process, and you might see higher technical scores on the juniors because they're doing more things because their shape allows them to do it. Okay, that's just reality. That's fine. But they may not have the same maturity in their performance. So I think that it will lengthen a skater's career. And I think it's a healthy thing for the skater, which is the most important thing, as you've said, lengthen the career. And I think it'll be really interesting to watch a junior career transition into a senior career. So I also think it's good for popularity of the sport in time. Okay, number 11, you've got a long question on this one.
Ooh, right, pay attention, folks. Regina from Massachusetts has given us a little screed here, and she has said that as a far majority of the best scores in the history of the women's discipline has come from women 17 and under, with the senior eligibility age starting its climb to 17 as of this upcoming season. It's likely that the sport's future will see most of its best performances from a scoring standpoint at the junior level. As a prime example, Mal Shimada held the sport's top score for just about all of this past season. This is very exciting in many respects for the Junior Grand Prix. At the same time, it seems quite problematic for the sport on the whole when its biggest events with its largest potential for viewership is missing its most talented athletes. Do you guys have any thoughts on this? Yes, I do. Yes, it's a great question. For a sport that needs all the growth it can get, isn't putting forth a lesser product in your biggest events counterproductive? And from a competitive standpoint, is a world champion really a world champion if hypothetically there are several juniors putting up scores higher than theirs?
Okay, before we go to yours, my thought is this, is that if the juniors are doing more technical elements, more difficult technical elements, because physically it's easier for them to do it at this point, that's not a bad thing at all. They're certainly not going to have the maturity and experience as they will in seniors. So what do we see watching juniors, the top juniors? We're going to see the sport, a higher emphasis on the sport aspect of it. And then what we're going to see in the seniors is the mixture of sport, art, and entertainment, where the maturity of the person themselves and the understanding of the music and the storytelling and all that. So, you know, the seniors will be more entertaining. From my perspective, that's going to be more entertaining. The audience is there. It's exciting. There's different programs. There's different music genres. There's everything going on in there. So I'm not sure that's a bad thing. And why would we prohibit a person's physical ability when they're younger to turn a triple axel perhaps, or a quad? Maybe they can't do that in senior, but their maturity will make up for the difference of that. I don't think you can set those perfect rules to fit all people, because everybody is different and their growth, both physically and psychologically, will be at different times. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think we're all having to think about it and figure out, well, what is the impact of this? And of course, you know, the example with Mal Shimada from last year did ring a lot of bells of people wondering about the impact of what was to come. But when I look over the past maybe 30 years of women's figure skating, even longer, the names that crop up, the sort of legends of the sport, when you see Katarina Witt, who won two Olympic titles, she had a longer competitive career. I think for me, a 5-time world champion, Michelle Kwan, is a standout name of the sport, a person that lives in the memory of the ardent skating fans. I think still of maybe a Janet Lynn, who was competitively successful world medalist in her, she would be age eligible now. I don't think that there's the same connection with some of the likes of Tara Lipinski, who was 15 years old, won the Olympics in 1998, but then had hip surgery and had to leave the sport. Then Sarah Hughes, who then went on to win Olympic gold. Obviously great at the time, but there's not that same connection for skating fans around the world. And hopefully, for me, then I think of Carolina Kostner, who competed into her early 30s. I connect with them. Skating fans can connect with them. And hopefully that in turn for the sport will be good. If we think of tennis, Djokovic, Federer, the Williams sisters, we see them connect with them. There's engagement from people in the human as well. And so my hope will be that we'll be able to enjoy these skaters for longer, connect with them more, build up a reputation, and just bring in and invite in more spectators and fans of the sport. So I think that's a fairly good argument for it. Those are pretty good standout names that bolster my point.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that we have to give this a chance and see how this unfolds. And it'll take a number of years, 3, 4 years, 5 years before we really understand the impact on the sport. So that, more to come on that, that's for sure. Moving to, this is for you and for you only. Sarah from Cambridge. This is about dance. What are your thoughts on the changes to the required pattern in ice dance over the past couple of seasons, Mark?
Thank you, Sarah. So we touched on one of the earlier episodes, the World Championships that I competed in was the last time that a compulsory dance or pattern dance was competed at World Championships in its entirety as a standalone part of the event. And obviously since then it's had many variations, and now we see less and less of conventional compulsory or pattern dance sequences as they become part of various different guises. And now indeed for the last 2 seasons we haven't seen any compulsory dance aspect in seniors. I think that decisions are made with the view behind any decisions that are made by the International Skating Union are for the benefit of the sport and for the sport's appeal to a wider audience. And as it was with figures, they didn't lend themselves to spectator-friendly discipline. And for somebody like me who's spent so many years studying ice dance, I could watch a compulsory dance competition and I would know what to look for, and I'd be enjoying scrutinizing the techniques of it. But to fans that were trying to attract from elsewhere to bolster our sport, seeing the same thing repeatedly to the same music can be monotonous and boring and turn people away. And then in the culture that we're in now, where people are on TikTok and Instagram and we have YouTube shorts and everything's short and quick fire, I think we have to be mindful of moving with the times a little bit and being open to novelty and newness. I do understand though that because compulsory dances and pattern dances won't be used when we're watching European Worlds for continents, then that is a bit of a dying craft. And I know many people, I didn't do figures, but I know many people still, we're 33 years on since figures were removed from competition. I know people still hark back to lamenting the absence of them. I think 3-4 decades from now, people will lament the lack of compulsory dances. But things move on, and keep up with the times, folks. This is just the way it's going to be.
So, Mark, was there an answer in that?
I think I am truly the master of avoiding any statements.
Yeah, no. That was very clever. It was very well done, and I love it. By the way, you sure you're not a little French? Because you use a lot of arms. It's awesome.
I think it happens when I'm also a little bit hot and sweaty at the prospect of answering the question in a defined way. So the arms start to come out and I flap a little bit.
A little deflection, is it?
Yeah. Yes. Buff it away. All right, my turn to ask a question. Surely
Yes.
it's my turn to battle back to you.
Go ahead.
Actually, this is definitely a question for you. So Domi from Alberta in your home nation of Canada, do you know when or if we will see Ilyana Shirayeva compete?
You'll see her compete in Istanbul. She'll be there. So sort of a new skater here in Canada, and you'll see her. Not much more to say. Take a look at it from Istanbul. Okay, that was an easy answer. Anne from Calgary, how do you find the right skating club if you aspire to go as far as your talent will take you? Good question.
Yeah, really good question. And I suppose then when we talked about coaches as well, we kind of tapped into this a little earlier. It really depends on the goals and aspirations of the skater or the fee payer, the parent, if that is the case. What their goals are really dictate the club in which they should be directed towards. Today, when I was coaching I was working with some synchronized skaters, and those skaters just adore their discipline, and they just seem to be so happy with it. It's finding something that fits for the human as best as possible. And with that in mind, I think asking questions, finding out what coaches or what clubs push and promote and have at the forefront, because not everybody wants to create an army of elite competitive skaters, and that might not be what is wanted. Yeah.
Good question. Good answer. Okay, mine's next.
So, Mikhail from St. Petersburg in Russia. In your opinion, you might want to back this back though. In your opinion, what current dance team has the best lifts? Why are they better? The best dance spins? Why are they better? And the best choreo elements? Why are they better?
Okay, Mark, the ball was in my court. I have quickly passed it right down the line in your court. Answer it.
I feel like you smash volleyed that back at me. So for me, the dance team with the best list, I mean, it's difficult to say. You could look at the skating scores online, as we were talking about this week, and the wonderful work that they do there, to find, the best level 4 with the best +5s. For me, the Cypriot team that competed at juniors the last few seasons, they've got some amazing lifts, and they obviously have worked extensively at taking the rules and taking the level features and trying to be as adventurous and acrobatic and risky as possible. They will not feature on the skating scores analysis of high scoring lifts because the difficulty, and for those that, it's difficult, Ted, because obviously we may have people listening that have differing awarenesses of the requirements for the ice dancers, but it can be quite easy to get a level 4, and that has a safer way of getting a higher grade of execution. The Cypriot team went for really athletic, creative stuff, which has the potential for a much higher grade of execution, but at this stage in their career is going to be lower. So I'd go for them for the lifts. Spins, nobody stands out to me off the top of my head. Best choreo elements, those that are the most creative. It's always wondrous when we see something that we haven't seen before, and that's been one of the highlights of the Ice Dance Technical Committee's inclusion of these choreographic elements, because we've seen skaters be almost forced to be more creative and more unique. And this year, now we get to see the choreographic hydroblade move. So there's another opportunity for skaters to play, create, and create something new. And I like, it's Alicia Fabry and Paul Ayer, Canadian team. They had a really great choreographic slide last year that just really impressed me. So that's off the top of my head, the best one.
Well done, Mark. Well done. Jeez. You're here. That's for sure. I would have skipped over that one. Okay.
Shall I send this to you then? Shall I ask the next question again?
Okay.
To you. So I'll go from Hugh from Berlin in Germany. Why do you think skaters so often pick Warhorse music?
Warhorse, I guess, just means the most popular pieces, that they keep picking the same popular pieces. But, well, thank gosh the ISU brought in vocals. I think that was important. That expanded the horizons a little bit. But I think it's obviously, from my perspective, when you take something that is absolutely unique in a music piece that's perhaps a little bit abstract or hasn't been done before, it's very difficult to create magic with something that is that doesn't have magic maybe in the music itself. Like it could be an abstract piece that doesn't have a beautiful melody, but it's very unique. If you skate it at that level, like you take a look at some of the great performances in the history of skating, who can do those pieces and who can replicate them? You've seen Bolero. How many times have you seen it? It was done once to that level that it was, oh my gosh. And then every time after that, it's really, really difficult to take. But you saw it be successful, and it's a beautiful piece of music, so people will gravitate to that because there is an example. So I think people probably go to those pieces, those warhorse piece of music, because they've seen it work well before. They just maybe can't work it as well as it has been done in the past. But I think that you take a look at pieces like the Pirates of the Caribbean that was done, has been done how many times, and and I've seen, I think the version that I most liked was oh my gosh, she won the world. It was in Nice, France. Elisabetta Tukhacheva was unbelievable. Like, had never been done by a woman at that stage. Was incredible, right? But then every time after that, it's difficult to reach it. But the music is beautiful. When the music is there, you want to skate to good music. So worst thing, what's your worst case scenario? You don't skate well, but people had a nice time listening to your music, right? I don't know. I don't have the perfect answer, that's for sure. What are your thoughts?
I suppose when people choose like your Carmen or your Swan Lake that are so commonly used, for me, I assume that partly because they've maybe seen somebody else do it, they loved it, or partly because there's such an easy story. When we look at when the judges come to give their marks for composition, they say things like choreography that reflects the musical phrase and form, or an understanding of the music and the composition. Well, Carmen, it's not hard to understand the music and the composition because we're more akin to know the story, or Swan Lake, we are more akin to knowing that story. So perhaps the choice is because they think, well, the judges know what I'm trying to present to them. So when they come to give me a presentation score, it might be a little bit easier for them to do it. Maybe that's one of the reasons. Or like you say, maybe it's just because it's blooming good music.
Yeah, it's hard when you've got a good music piece. You go, well, people like this music. I like this music. I know it's been done. I'm going to go with it anyways, right? So don't have the perfect answer, that's for sure. From Sarah from Cambridge in the United Kingdom, what skaters from countries outside the Big Four, Canada, United States, Russia, and Japan, are you most excited to see develop?
So again, working on the Junior Grand Prix with you, Ted, I was able to see at the junior level the real grassroots development of some new ISU skating federations and nations, and it is really exciting to see. It's exciting to see as a lover of the sport, as somebody who wants our sport to continue to fight as a recognized sport that's popular in households. Then now seeing skaters from Egypt or skaters from other lesser established skating nations taking part makes me excited at the idea of more participation. We just want more people to fall in love with our sport. So I'm excited to see more nations in terms of, competing with the Big Four. That's a really big challenge. That is a big challenge. It's a challenge for so many factors, maybe because the sport is such a, it's in Canada, everybody skates in Canada, right? People go skating from, whether it's hockey or not, culturally, more people go to ice rinks in Canada. In Russia, it's one of the most popular sports in the nation, so more people are inclined to go. It would be hard to be competitive with other nations where skating is so infiltrated into their psyche. But we hope for that. We hope that the French Papadakis Fizeron winning Olympic gold will inspire more, or that Javier Fernandez influence will be more voluminous for Spanish skaters over the next decade or two.
Now, we've seen some good skating coming from Estonia and from Latvia as well. So some of the smaller nations are developing some really high quality skating, which is motivating the next generation of skaters. And there is growth, maybe not at the highest level of abilities or qualities at the moment, but there's growth around the world. There's new countries coming onto the ISU all the time. So that's very encouraging, and that'll take generations to develop. Last question. Is this mine or yours?
I think so. I'm coming from Toronto. So James from Toronto. Finding the right balance. Oh, sorry, my mistake. Finding the right partner is a big issue in both pairs and dance. As a fan, I have often been frustrated and saddened when a great skater can't find a partner after a split or the retirement of their former partner. How can the coach match pairs or help match pairs? And what do teams do during the tryout process? It's a multifaceted question. This one is more. How long do teams give a tryout before they know it is going to work?
It's a really good question, and there are no easy answers in this. But those nations that participate in pair skating will take that discipline for the moment. And there's fewer nations, so there's fewer pair skaters out there. There's no question. But coaches will match the pairs by, if a skater hasn't been a pair skater, they'll take a look at their single skills and see if there's a match, both physically, obviously, with technique as well. So, and then you have to get a person who's interested in trying it, because skaters are single skaters first. And so if they love that discipline, it's hard to switch, because then you think, well, you don't think I'm a very good single skater, so that's not very nice. You want to put me over here. And so you have that attitude. I don't want to move to pairs or dance. I think I'm a good single skater. So you've got that attitude to fight. That's a challenge. Quite often in pair skating, you can get them to switch to that, but it takes a very, very special skater, particularly in women in the pair skating, because it's so unique and so different. And it takes a certain mindset to be able to love flying through the air and hanging upside down and all of that. So there's fewer of those people. So you just try to mix and match as best that you can. And you talk to the skaters, you talk to the parents, you talk to their coach and say, would you be interested in doing a tryout? Tryouts then will take, maybe a couple days to see, not only do they skate well, but do they get along as people? I mean, usually that takes a bit of time to sort of see whether that works or not. Then you might try for a couple of days, but then you may need to come back and try it again. If you see that the skating skills are the same and you're going, this looks really good, and you show them, and they will hopefully think that, yeah, it feels really good, it looks really good, maybe come back and try it again before you really make a decision. Usually it requires someone actually moving away from home and going, and that's also another challenge. What are your thoughts in the area of dance?
Well, I think I've had this discussion with a male skater today who was saying to me that he really wants to skate with another girl on the rink, and he's been told by the coaches, well, we're not the right physical match. It's tricky, because in an ideal situation, when there is an abundance of male and females that want to form into partnerships, you could nitpick and you could look for the optimal aesthetic physical match, the optimal skating skill style, the optimal temperaments, and you could find this dream team. But in this instance today, I was suggesting, well, it's difficult. I didn't want to put my opinion on it. I didn't want to be involved in the process, but I was thinking, yes, you're maybe not the optimal physical match, but in the UK at the moment, there aren't an abundance of partnerships. And to me, it was better for the female to be in a partnership than not in a partnership, because then you're on the circuit of partners, and therefore, if this doesn't work, you're more inclined to be considered for another partnership. So it's very much case dependent on situation, geographies, financially. There are so many variables in the picking of partnerships, and that's why I completely hear from James. He says it's frustrating and saddening when a great skater can't find a partner after a split or the retirement of their former partner. Completely agree with you. But the number of variables that have to match up, finances, geography, aspirations, so many cogs in the wheel need to slot in line to justify being perpetually exhausted, probably being quite skint because you're spending all your money on ice skating, and being physically grueling every day. So there's a lot to consider to justify the task in hand.
Well, it's interesting. Here in Canada, they've redefined the definition of team. And so it is not about a male and a female. It can be two males or two females in our country. And so that will open up the discipline for sure, for people to find a match. So this is going to take a whole new turn, and everybody has opinions on this. I think it's brave. I think it's dynamic. I think it's fascinating. I think it's innovative, and we will see what the world provides, at least in our country, in pairs and in ice dance. And this will just be incredibly interesting to see how this all develops. So I think when it comes to the traditional male and female partner, there are obviously a little bit more complications. And now with a new definition of a team, we'll see what happens with that. So all the things that you've mentioned apply to, dance teams and para teams, the challenges and the difficulties of getting together. And of course, we do lose some top talented skaters because they just can't find the right partner, or they don't want to move. So it's a challenging part of the business, no question. We see more dance teams than there are para teams, and I think there are reasons for that. So we'll just have to wait and see how this unfolds here in our country and around the world. Okay.
Well, actually, on the back of that, Ted, had you seen Stéphane Lambier and Guillaume Cizeron? They've created a piece together. So that was really interesting to watch. I saw that just on social media the other day, and then Madison Hubble and Gabriela Papadakis created a piece together. So obviously something that I'm sure will be entering more and more into our realm of figure skating.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of very exciting things to come. This is just the way the world has always gone. People will break new grounds. There'll be something that's innovative and exciting, and other people will always have their opinions. That is just life. That's not figure skating. That's just life. That's politics, that's art, that's everything. So we just go with it, and we'll see. And it's incredible how people are so innovative and have a vision for themselves of which is the vision, which is not the vision of people in that current era. But it takes innovators, and it takes challengers, and it takes courage to change the times. And I think we'll see some of that coming up in our sport over the next number of years. Okay, Bart, that concludes episode number 4. Budapest coming up this week on the Junior Grand Prix. Mark, looking forward to continue to work with you. So much fun. I learn a lot from you. I throw a lot onto your shoulders. Okay, you take dance questions. I have lots of opinions about dance, but I don't have a lot of the detail of that. I mean, I can see the detail, and I think people can as well. And that's going to be part of our job, is to help the audience throughout the Junior Grand Prix understand the nuances, particularly in dance, of what to look for, of why one team in the technical part might be above another team. That's your job. So
happy to serve. Okay,
awesome. Well, let's carry on in the Junior Grand Prix for all of us here at Off Ice. I'm Ted Barton, along with Mark Hanretty. We hope that you'll join us on episode number 5. We're not sure where that will come from. It may come from one of the events that we're at, or when it's going to come, but we hope you'll join us for sure. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of Off Ice.